What's going on, everyone? So now that we know that Scream 8 is in the works and we are getting at least one more sequel, probably a trilogy, it's probably my guess. I mean, they wanted to do a trilogy centered around Sam. And also, as soon as Scream 7 was announced, there were immediately rumors that, like, hey, they're going to do a Scream 8. And their plan ultimately is to do a new Sidney Prescott trilogy. That they're going to do a new story that is built and focused and centered around Sidney Prescott, and they have at least two films that are in the works, right? If they can do the third film, they want to do the third film, but obviously with what happened, with Melissa Barrera and all that, although that was like very unique circumstances, but you never know, right? Something could happen, or this film could do great and 8 could flop, right? There's a million potentials, right? You don't want, they're already putting the cart before the horse. You don't want to put the cart too far before the horse, right? Now, as far as like Scream 8 goes and all that stuff, I do think that that's coming, and I do think that it's very likely that Scream 7 will be the setup and establishment film. I think it makes a lot of sense that if your plan really is to do this trilogy, and we already know Scream 8 is in the works, I think that it is a fair guess. This is what it is, it's a guess. I think it's a fair guess that they have an idea and story that is going to bare minimum be worth two films, right? Because they've already put the cart before the horse. They already, before Scream 7 was even filmed and ready to go and all that stuff, right? Before they even knew everything, right? Like, they immediately had the idea for Scream 8 also, which would lead you to believe that there's probably going to be kind of like a continued story. I think what will happen, again, this is just my guess, these are just my thoughts. I think what will happen is we will see kind of this be a setup and establishment film, Scream 7 that is. I think you'll set up whatever it is, the Ghostface cult, or, some grand scheme, right? Like a Thanos level threat, right? You'll have like the Infinity War to the end game type thing. And I think that you'll have kind of like this be the first building block, right? This will be more the setup and establishment film. And like, I can also see, because there's like 20 people in this film that we know about, like literally, it's like not an exaggeration, right? There's a lot of people for a film, right? I think what is going to happen is that this is just going to be a continued story. I think it's going to be like a Halloween 18 and Halloween Kills, where it's all like kind of on the same night, all in the same like frame, right? I think that that's the route that they will go with this upcoming Scream 7 and Scream 8. And I think Sydney will be the setup. They'll have some grand scheme that does what it does, and then it'll, yeah, you could still have some conclusiveness. You could still have, like the main killers in this film, meet their end at the hands of the characters, and maybe you have like, with 20 characters, let's say 10 of them survive, right? And it's like, okay, so you have, a bunch of characters survived. You have this like wrapped in a bow moment, but we know that, like, oh no, this was just the beginning. And then maybe you have like finally do the cliffhanger ending route, and boom, right? I really do look at Scream 7 now very differently. And I wouldn't be shocked if that's entirely what this is. It is just a setup, establishment film that they are going to really kind of use as like a building block for the next few installments. Because look, if they can squeeze out a trilogy, they're going to squeeze out a trilogy. From the moment Scream 5 was announced, I made videos and talked about how we're probably going to get 10 of these films, right? Because again, like Spyglass and them spent like $500,000 to go get the rights to Scream, and it was like a whole catalog. It wasn't just Scream; it was like a bunch of stuff. But they spent all that money to go get the rights, and Scream was the big grand prize. They're not doing that just to do like one film, right? They're doing that to do like 10 of these. And now you hear, we know that there's like a Kirby spinoff coming, and they might want to do a new TV series and all this stuff, right? All this stuff is supposed to be in the works. They're doing at least 2 more movies, which would put them, at what would that be? 4 movies minimum at that point with this new installment, which again, if they can do a 5th, they will do a 5th. So you kind of just go down the list. It's like, okay, it kind of makes sense that, why wouldn't you want to set up, in particular, this this grand story that can build multiple films, right? And then Sydney's at the helm. Sydney is the focus. Everything kind of orbits around Sydney, and then you transition into, Tatum, right? That could be your next transition. Where, like you saw with Halloween 18 Kills and Ends, is like it was Laurie, and then you slowly saw the transition into Allison, right? And then Karen ends up dying to kind of further create that distance and then move Allison to the forefront. And then lo and behold, Allison is now the main focus, right? Like that's kind of what I can see them maybe potentially doing in that regard here. But it would make sense that you would want this to kind of, again, be the build-up film, be the setup film, be the establishment film. Have this film, really kind of tie Sidney Prescott into being the main, the sun, so to speak, while all the other planets orbit. You have some like Infinity War level setup, right? And then you have this like crazy cliffhanger ending, and it's like, oh no, how is that, like, how are they going to get out of that? Or, how is Sydney going to survive this? Or, maybe even Sydney dies, or, it's the cliffhanger is fully focused on Sydney, whatever, right? There's a million ways you go about it. But in the end, I think that we're going to get something where, I think this is going to be the beginning. I think we're going to look back, whether it's at the end of Scream 7 or, at the end of Scream 9, where we're like, oh, okay, like, yeah, that was clearly the setup film. But I think at some point we're going to look back and we're going to go like, oh, okay. It's very obvious what they did, right? The Scream 7 was the platform in which to jump off of, right? Or the foundation that they needed to build the house, right? I think that that's probably the approach. I think that that's probably how they're going to go about this. Look, if it's done right and it's done correct, beautiful. It's done right and it's done correct, perfect. Let's do it. Sign me up. I'm all for that. But, again, at the end of the day, it's all about the execution, the delivery, how do they approach, and you want to do something that actually makes sense and isn't like all over the place or ridiculous and over the top and whatnot. But again, time will tell. Anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel with your thoughts? Do you agree? Disagree? Kind of mixed in the middle? How do you feel? Either way, I would love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel. What are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.